We've got some curtains. We've got a hymn wave here, Craig.
Yes.
So this is the first thing we see, is like this pattern, and this comes to dominate the game, right?
Yeah. The hymn wave kicks things off with a spooky synth mystic voice describing some things.
So this is the demo. We're going to look through the whole demo. This is around half an hour or so. We're going to go through the whole thing. We should probably introduce who's talking here. The British voice you hear is I'm Dan Berry. I'm a comic artist, podcaster, and most recently spare pair of hands on Jett the Far Shore plus Given Time, and I'm talking to the North American sounding voice, Craig Adams.
Oh boy, yeah. I'm Craig D. Adams, the founder, creator, bozo at Superbrothers AV. And I was the co-creator of Sorcery back in 2011, and I'm the co-creator of Jett.
There we go.
So a lot of the things you're seeing and hearing and reading are things that I worked very hard on for a number of years.
So here we go. We're going to jump into Jett the Far Shore demo. So the demo here is basically the first chapter of the game, right?
Yeah, this is like the prologue. We call it Zero Embark. But the idea here is to sort of put the player on the hook in as many ways as we can with an interesting world. And then we're looking to kind of put the player on the hook personally, too. This is the protagonist's parents that were meeting for the first time in whatever circumstance this is. Well, the player's meeting them for the first time. Turns out they're saying goodbye to us. And there's a lot of heavy hearts.
Yeah, now there's some backstory. There's some it's a little history between you and I with this sequence here.
True fact. Yes. So this whole prologue, I think it came about in late 2015, early 2016, and up until that point, we had like the main game, the main campaign in place, and in that main campaign, you're going to be deploying to this unfamiliar planet, the Far Shore. But it occurred to me, like, we really need to, I don't know, make the players care about the plight of these people and the specific characters that they're going to be going on this adventure with. So I had some notion of how we would do that. Let's start the player in this kind of steppes location and then sort of present more of the world and then bring them to a cosmodrome where we're going to embark on this trip. But then the tone of this prologue came into focus at some point after having picked up your book and Carry Me, which is a book that is written from the point of view of a parent. And at the time I was a new parent. And yeah, there are certain ideas and thoughts that you don't have until you're a parent.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the things that occurred to me after reading Carry Me was, who do I most resonate with in this story of Jett? Is it, one of the scouts, or is it the protagonist, May? And it kind of evolved to the point where I realized that, no, I relate to the people who are saying goodbye to these scouts. And most directly, I relate to May's parents, who have done what they can and now are trusting their child to this kind of to whatever adventure awaits.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's something about that I really there's a beauty and a heartbreak and a heaviness to it. And so that tone ended up I think, getting integrated into the goings on of this prologue.
We just glossed over a little Easter egg there in the footage here. Who was sat behind the statue there?
Yeah, I probably talked over a whole bunch of things just there. Apologies for that. But yeah, there's a couple different things you can kind of encounter in that village. And one that only a few will notice is the, what's he called? The skeptic?
Yep.
Who is a sort of the one sour note in the proceedings. Everybody's kind of got this stoic, dour, but well-wishing emotion. And then there's somebody sat off to the side who is just damning the whole enterprise.
Off you go
and
die.
We were lucky to secure the services of one Hollywood, Dustin Harbin, who plays an interesting role in the Jett's creation and current sort of comms situation. He's an old friend and another fellow comics person that you know, Dan.
Yeah.
Anyway,
artist extraordinaire.
Yeah, Dustin considers that role, which doesn't really reoccur until, well, technically I guess it does in given time, but shush. Dustin considers that the starring role for the game.
Yeah.
Two schools of thought on that.
I mean, it was weird that he wasn't on the cover of the game. That is strange.
The actual star of the game in terms of the number of lines, though, is our trusty copilot, Isao, who's another old friend of mine, great guy Faraz Momani, who's an incredible storyboard artist and illustrator. He chipped in with some temp voice a bunch of years ago, and then it stuck, and so we were able to secure his services as a voice actor, speaking with his specific intonation, but in this kind of made-up language of Jett.
Yeah,
but we should focus up on what's going on. We've just mounted up in our Jett with Isao. We've got a sense as to who Isao is. We're on our way to the Cosmodrome Z13, but this is like our first moment where we get to actually, see how the game feels and get used to the controls and this kind of thing.
Yeah, so I should say that this is footage of me playing through the demo. I'm not doing this live because I am 41 years old and I can do one thing at a time. And using my thumbs or my tongue, like it's in an either-or state. So we pre-recorded this, so if it looks like I'm flying really well, it's because I'm not talking at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, this is this is a weird project. I'll admit it. It has a lot of different ingredients in it, but at its core, it is about, hey, it's really fun to zip around in this Jett. So for as much gloom, for as many heady concepts, for as much sort of fussy ecosystem things that we kind of get into later, we did try to make this experience centered around, hey, it's really fun to zip around in this thing and look at the world around us and enjoy nice audio and music. The music is a big part of Jett, and in this section you're hearing one of Andy, your scientific's excellent cruising compositions.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's a really intricate MP3 player, right?
Sure.
It's got a great soundtrack because Andy, it's cinematic, it's thematic, it's other words that end in attic. It's real great.
Yeah, when it's firing on all cylinders, it's the IMAX science fiction film that you want to see, while also being the laid-back snowboarding game that you want to play, while also being, your favorite new record. It's trying to do all of those things at once. So, no lack of ambition in terms of Jett's vision.
So this sequence here is this is the part of the game where you're like, right, hey dummy, this is how you fly the thing, this is what you do. This is kind of an important sequence, and this is the demo, so this is telling people how to do it. But it's not just a tutorial, right?
Well, if by that you mean that there's a lot more going on than just here's what the controls are, then yes. And when you're in the midst of playing the demo, right now your head is just full of like, oh, that's what this button does. Oh, that's how the joystick is working. So, this is right here, little story light. But those story elements are about to pick up again. And yeah, I think all of these elements, they build up to a moment that's coming. They sort of, we're engaging you on a bunch of different levels in terms of what the game is. And like I was saying earlier, we're trying to put you on the hook, personally intrigue you in this world, get you curious about what's going on, get you thinking about this society in which this is happening. It's a distinct society in some ways, I think.
Because I think when I first played it, the thing that struck me was like you go from what feels like quite a natural environment. You're outside, there's grass, there's people, and then you're getting into quite an industrialized environment. Is the game making, let's say, a commentary about industrialization or the environment?
Well, far be it for me to, specifically say one thing or the other. I think the game should stand on its own. But to mention some things in these general directions, to make a sort of interesting world to me, it has to have layers, it has to have a history. So, a traditional sort of society does exist alongside an industrial society in our world, so why would it be any different anywhere else? So the mixture of those elements is just, I think, what makes a sort of an interesting world. But the world that we start to understand here, it's one where the planet feels a little worn down, and the amount of industry that we're seeing, we maybe start to get a sense that it's like, and we're gonna hear some comments from Isao about it, but like the spaceship we're going to be departing on, the mother structure, it's massive. The effort it took, rocket launches, over 300 years constructing this thing, the amount of effort and lives and material that has gone into this effort was enough to like leave an impact on the society and the world. Not to say that, the construction of this spaceship was the solitary factor in sort of destabilizing ecosystems, but we're just seeing that like all this kind of interstellar adventure in this universe, it has this kind of hard cost. The hard cost of that effort, it kind of defines the prologue, but these ideas of costs and downstream impacts do kind of permeate the rest of the work. When you get to the far shore, we're still concerned with these kinds of themes. There's I think at root with Jett, there was some idea of creating a science fiction world that grappled honestly with where we're at, and sort of not choosing to overlook the ways that our society functions or the sort of impacts of an industrialized civilization. Anyway, that's a bit of waffle. I'm probably talking over some more interesting things here.
So we're pulling into the Cosmodrome now, and we can see some of the rockets previously mentioned. So this is where the game's going to take a little turn, I think. Certainly less cheerful here.
Yeah. I was thinking about this scene maybe in particular, but this prologue. There's a Werner Herzog movie, not the one you're thinking of Aguirre, Wrath of God, which was a sort of reference point for the campaign that's to come. But instead, he's got this movie called Lessons of Darkness, where he's taken helicopter footage from the first Gulf War, but then he's removed all context from it and added a sort of science fiction context to it, so that we're not thinking specifically about, this Earth country whose history we know, but more about the movements of peoples and societies. At any rate, I think there's some sort of connection to some of what I was trying to kind of get across in this location and what's going on in that film. Yeah, here we go. We're leaving it all behind, meeting up with our buddy Isao and taking one last look.
Yep.
And a lot of what was driving these moments was just like, what would it actually feel like to be embarking on an interstellar trip, one where there's enough hard sci-fi that it's a one-way trip. It's not like you're hyperspacing to and fro. When you leave, you are never coming back. And when you wake up from torpor, our version of cryosleep, 1,000 years will have passed. What does it feel like, those final moments? That's what this was all supposed to sort of do. But yeah, here we are meeting our scout unit. Good old Misha, the voice of Terry Brocious, who's also the voice of Shodan from the System Shock series and chipped in on the writing. Pasha, trusty old Pasha. Misha and Pasha being the sort of like leadership for this particular scout unit. Jones being the sort of jet ace and commander.
The cool one.
Who, sort of our Captain Kirk, who will have an interesting story, in the main campaign.
How did this language come about? Because this is no language I've heard.
Yes. So, the way these characters talk is its own specific style, and I was going for something a little stoic, a little mannered, but then I really wanted to be able to hear the characters speak, but we weren't about to commit to full voice acting. I should mention, context for this project is that for many years it was 2 full-time devs, myself and Patrick at Pine Scented, and so we were working within a pretty tight box.
Yeah.
But the idea that I had was that it should be specifically not English speaking. It should be not from our world, ideally. It should sort of pop us out of the kind of cultural context that we're used to. So our first at-bat with that was to record a friend of mine speaking in Inuktitut, another friend in fact, Faraz, who I mentioned, the voice of Isao, in Arabic. Then we kind of brought those samples in and chopped them up into little pieces and used that as our proof of concept. And it was a good enough proof of concept. You got a sense of who these people were, but then you had to rely on the writing to understand it. So just like you'd read subtitles in a foreign film.
Yeah.
So that was a good proof of concept, but then in order to deliver on that in the sort of quality that we were looking for the shipping game, it's a whole other story involving Priscilla Snow and the Shell in the Pit and an entire language getting developed by Priscilla Snow. But now's not the time to dig into that.
You'll just drop that.
Here we go.
A whole language.
Yeah, it's a whole language. It's
easy.
Pretty fascinating that happened as part of the production of this video game. Sometimes you just got to make a language to ship a game.
Yeah, I mean, everyone does it.
But this is it. We're embarking. We're going into torpor.
Let's hop on a rocket and go to space.
And for any sorcery fans, this is getting pretty close to where we're going to drop the needle on Jim's big song for Jett.
Jim,
so this first little
Never heard of
preamble,
him.
we're still
Who's this
hearing Andy's notes, scientific's notes, as May goes into a torpor chamber. Her heart rate slows. Presumably, the torpor chambers get put onto a rocket. That part we didn't film it.
There's a big leap of imagination there that if people are not capable of, come on.
Yeah. And then, here we are, the moment of launch. Jim's song that's about to begin is called Out of Our Hands. And it ties into that weird mix of heavy feeling of letting these young people, the scout unit, the thousands of other scouts who are also on this adventure, letting all of that and the hope of this people, letting that all go. So this is the mother structure. It's been under construction for 300 years. Imagine if it began like the International Space Station, but they just kept adding.
Modular.
This is it. This is the day when it actually leaves. Our camera is like attached to part of the mother structure. So the world is moving around us, but we're sort of positioned on the spaceship. This sequence, I just had the idea that this mix of ideas would get across the right amount of hard science fiction. Like we actually, if you're squinting, you can see that we have to accelerate to get out of our solar system. And then there's a long period when we're crossing the abyss of space where the rockets aren't firing because we're just traveling at speed. And then if you watch real close, there's a sort of moment where the star field quickly adjusts and we start our deceleration burn.
I was also watching closely and like an old guy popped up for a second there.
Yeah, there's a few things that happen during this traversal. I think it might be related to torpor sickness.
Okay.
But that older fellow, Sosi, we'll learn about him in the main campaign. But he's sort of like a Jules Verne and Vladimir Lenin and Leo Tolstoy and smoosh them together. That's kind of who that guy is. So we've arrived at the far shore, across the Sea of Stars, 1,000 years later. And there's just infinite potential. All the scouts and all their jets and all their equipment, all in the mother structure, waiting for their moment to deploy, to see what's down there and to see what's in store.
So you'll have to tune in next time.
That's right.
There we go. That concludes the demo. We're into a trailer now. Beautifully edited, I might say.
Tell me, who edited this trailer?
This guy. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, this is the trailer that we put together the last little while just to sort of start banging the drum about Jett coming back, and you can see some glimpses of the new content.
Some
given
hardship
time.
and weird stuff happening.
Yeah. And you can start to see the mix of different elements that make up the actual game. Big creatures, weird lasers, strange dream sequences, some sort of classic science fiction stuff.
There's a hell of a lot more Jett, for sure.
Yeah, there we go. The definitive edition of Jett coming soon. Feels really good.
well done, everyone. We made it through the demo. Just go and play it yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
Pop it on your wish
While you're
list.
there, don't hesitate to wish list us.
Follow it along, get news updates and jazz like that. They're
Yeah.
very well written.
Yeah, if you're watching this and you're a sorcery fan, hope you enjoy what Jett has to offer. And if you're already somebody who knows what Jett's all about, and if you're a Jett head and you're looking forward to what's in store for Given Time, then great. It's going to be a good one.
Squad out. That'll do. There we go. Stop recording.
All right,
Done.
so we recorded the 2 minutes, and then we should check.